So here we are at the beginning of a new electrified Alfa Romeo era, which is quite a turnaround given that as recently as the start of 2022, the brand couldn't even offer you a hybrid, let alone an EV. This car, the Tonale, is a hybrid, in this case of the plug-in kind, and it's also an SUV of the smaller sort, which Alfa reckons will almost treble the proportion of UK buyers who might consider the brand. But what kind of brand now is this? Even if you're prepared to stretch Alfisti values to embrace the idea of a fashion-led electrified small crossover, you might balk at the idea of it being based on the engineering of a clunky Jeep Compass, as this one is. But give this car a chance, it actually has a surprising amount to offer.
We're told that the Tonale crossover is heart and soul Alfa from the ground up, building on the Milanese maker's DNA of sportiness, which stretches all the way back to 1910. That's not quite true, but the Tonale does bring a dash of Latin colour to the segment for posh, premium small SUVs, and it represents the very beginning of Alfa's journey into electrification, with drivetrains that are of both the mild, or as in this case, the plug-in hybrid sort. This PHEV Tonale delivers up to 37 miles of EV driving in a car that lacks the Teutonic perfection of some competitors, but you're compensated with enough pavement presence to make key German rivals look very dull indeed. To find out more, you're going to need the usual comprehensive car and driving review. In years gone by, the alternative to the standard 1.5 litre petrol hybrid motor in this Tonale would have been one of Alfa's eager Fiat-sourced diesels, but those days are long gone, in our market at least, so we get an expensive petrol plug-in hybrid instead, and that's a drivetrain borrowed from the Jeep Compass, but embellished with a bit of extra power, a total of 275 horsepower in this case. Now that Jeep derivation is actually welcome because it means that the system includes four-wheel drive, now with the exception of BMW's X1 plug-in and a couple of ridiculously priced Jaguar Land Rover plug-in products in this segment. All this Alfa's other PHEV crossover class rivals are merely front-driven. As is often the case with this kind of powertrain, the engine part of the equation is based on pretty aging tech. In this case, a 1.3 litre Fiat multi-air petrol unit, originally developed for turn-of-the-century Fiat Punto and Tipo hatches, which now lie rusting in junkyards. The rest of it's pretty clever though. This power plant supplies 177 horsepower to drive the front wheels, and it's aided only when necessary by a 121 horsepower electric motor mounted on the rear axle, creating a very different kind of four-wheel drive system to those we've seen on previous Q4 badged Alfas, but nevertheless one that can provide instantaneous deployment of 100% of available torque to either axle. That electric motor is powered by a 15.5 kilowatt hour battery pack with a WLTP driving range when fully charged of 37 miles. A small blue EV logo at the bottom of the instrument screen shows when you're in full battery motion. Once the engine does cut in, which is pretty seamless, you'll find that the Tonale plug-in's 128 miles per hour top speed is slightly lower than the base model, but the rest to 62 miles an hour time looks usefully more rapid at 6.2 seconds, although in practice the car never actually feels quite that fast. It's hindered by a lack of low-speed torque and by the somewhat lethargic responses of the 6-speed automatic gearbox that you have to have. This is one of those transmissions that flares the revs wildly as soon as you ask it to do anything out of the ordinary, so you quickly learn gentle applications of your right foot, and with that approach the Tonale plug-in hybrid Q4 feels quite a pleasant day-to-day companion in suburban duties. As with the ordinary mild hybrid version, you get Alfa's usual DNA driving mode system, and on this PHEV variant, the controller for it also includes a central button for the brand's dual-stage valve suspension adaptive damping system. A drive mode explorer section of the central screen's My Car section shows the various drive settings that you've selected. Unusually, it's possible to have a sharper engine setting matched with a comfier ride. The central screen also has a performance section with various technical gauges, which is very Alfa-like. Apart from the badge work and the extra charging flap, there are no obvious visual changes for this PHEV model. As with the ordinary Tonale, if you know your Alfas, you'll recognise plenty of historical brand cues here. The Zagato SZ style headlights with 3 beams on each side. They're pretty faithful to what we saw from the Inspiration model here, the concept car that the brand showed at Geneva back in 2019. Size-wise, think BMW X1 or Audi Q3. The 1.6 metre height is much the same, the length is 4.53 metres, and the Tonale is 1.84 metres wide. These standard 18-inch wheels feature Alfa's classic telephone dial style wheel design. At the rear, the curved rear screen apparently references a Bertone Coupe from the 1960s, and if you opt for this top Veloce trim, the car gains dual chrome exhaust tips. You might be equally sold on the cabin, which places you snugly behind the chunky wheel and looks lovely when it's specced out with the brand's sumptuous leather upholstery. This Veloce variant has beautiful aluminium shift paddles. There's new territory for Alfa with digital screens. The centre dash is 10.25 inches in size and includes all the usual audio, navigation, Alfa Connect and smartphone mirroring systems. For this plug-in hybrid model, it also gains a useful e-hybrid section. That'll give you an energy monitor, driving consumption history graphs, and it allows you to set charging schedules. The display you view through the wheel is 12.3 inches across and features some neat animations of those lovely 3x3 headlamps. There are 3 available instrument screen layouts: trendy Evolved, minimalistic Relax, and retro style dual gauge Heritage. That was supposedly inspired by the brand's legendary 60s and 70s models, and it has distinctive details like classic look EV and engine range readouts. These screen settings are activated by clicking this button at the end of this rather cheap feeling right-handed steering wheel stalk. On that subject, there are a few Fiat style touches which are out of place on a car demanding a near £50,000 price tag. And seeing out, well, that could be a bit easier. But these sport seats are comfortable and supportive, and there's plenty of cabin stowage space. Backseat legroom is very acceptable by class standards. A 6-foot passenger can sit behind an equally lanky front seat occupant. The bench unfortunately doesn't do anything clever like slide or recline, but you do get an armrest with cup holders, reasonably sized door bins, each with a bottle holder, plus there are coat hooks on the grab handles, overhead reading lights and seat back pockets. As is usual though in PHEV models in this class, the boot capacity figure drops quite a lot, from the 500 litre figure of the ordinary model to just 385 litres here. That ordinary model gets more underfloor space too. Here, because of PHEV battery placement, there's just a narrow compartment, although it is big enough to take a set of charging leads. We do also like the way that the boot floor can be hooked up when you're accessing that lower storage area. If you push forward the 60-40 split rear bench, that increases the luggage capacity figure to 1,430 litres. If you like the idea of this plug-in hybrid 4-wheel drive Tonale model, there's a £6,000 premium to pay for it, which means asking prices start at around £46,000 for TI trim. There's £2,500 more to pay for the Veloce spec we have here. That is a fair old wedge, but importantly, it does get you 4-wheel drive. Remember that you'll be stuck with front-wheel drive if you go for PHEV versions of the Mercedes GLA and the Audi Q3, which cost only a little less with comparable trim, or indeed if you go for the Volvo XC40, which nevertheless costs around £5,000 more than this Alfa in comparable recharged T5 form. Again, an equivalent Cupra Formentor e-hybrid is much cheaper than a Tonale, around £40,000 in comparable V2 form, but that Spanish contender is only front-driven too. A better comparison to make if you have an eye out for Tonale plug-in alternatives is with the PHEV version of BMW's X1, which in all-wheel drive form, xDrive 30e, costs much the same as this Alfa but gives you more power but less equipment, so your call. A Jaguar E-Pace PHEV has four-wheel drive too, and again more power than this Alfa, but one of those is much pricier, around £60,000 for that rather inefficient little Jag in equivalent P400e guise, so not tempting. If you've decided that the Tonale plug-in hybrid is what you really want, you'll be pleased by the generous equipment levels. All models get adaptive matrix full LED headlamps, keyless entry, a powered tailgate, LED tail lights and an alarm. Inside you view a 12.5-inch instrument binnacle screen through a sport leather steering wheel with a start button, plus there's sporty black cloth upholstery, a driver's seat with four-way lumbar adjustment, there are aluminium pedals, there's dual zone air conditioning, there is a wireless charging mat and a ski hatch too. There's the usual Alfa DNA driving mode system with its normal, advanced efficiency and dynamic settings. Infotainment, that is taken care of by a 10.25-inch central touchscreen with navigation, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, also Bluetooth and a 6-speaker DAB radio. The centre screen also works with the Alfa Connect Services app that via a My Remote section allows you to do all the usual remote things. In terms of trim specifics, the base TI version defines itself externally with a satin chrome V front bezel, 18-inch dark finish diamond cut alloy wheels with coloured Alfa Romeo central caps, a gloss black body kit with satin side and front inserts and black painted mirror caps. If you want more, then you'll want the Veloce version we have here. The two key additions with this plusher spec are big Ferrari-like silver steering wheel mounted gearshift paddles and adaptive damping, clever Alfa dual stage valve suspension, DVS, for an even more compliant ride, and that works through the DNA driving mode system. Visually, Veloce models are marked out by dark Miron shading for the car's V-front bezel, plus Veloce badging and a special body kit with matte side and front inserts, plus gloss black window surrounds, as well as privacy glass and 19-inch dark finish diamond cut alloy wheels with monochrome Alfa Romeo central caps. Also, there's red painted Brembo brake calipers. Veloce spec gets you a distinctive black and red Alcantara upholstery choice and branded aluminium door sills. On this PHEV version, you get dual chrome exhaust tips too. So let's finish by covering off all the Tonale's standard safety features. As you'd expect, there's a full suite of camera safety elements, including autonomous emergency braking, which can recognise pedestrians and cyclists, and driver attention assist. Now this continually checks the vehicle's movements in order to detect driver fatigue. There is also lane keeping assist, traffic sign recognition, tyre pressure monitoring and a rear seat alert feature that prompts the driver to check the back seat when they leave the vehicle. All the passive safety stuff you'd want is included too. Well, nearly all of it anyway. Front, side and curtain airbags of course feature, but there's no central airbag of the sort that some competitors are now beginning to offer, which stops front passengers crashing into each other in an accident. Even so, the Tonale achieved the top 5-star rating from Euro NCAP. This variant's vastly larger 306-volt, 15.5 kilowatt-hour battery can be replenished from a 7.4 kilowatt charger in under 2.5 hours. If you're converting to a plug-in hybrid from a previous combustion model, you'll obviously need to factor in the cost of an EV charger for your home and perhaps also for your office. Now, there still is complexity around the best charging hardware to choose and exactly who is eligible for a government grant there. And obviously the costs can vary depending on the distance to your main meter from your charger and other factors. There's lots of advice out there to guide you, of course. We consulted plugmein.com, who offer customers everything from choice of charger to installation and ongoing maintenance. Now, they've advised us that even with increased energy prices, the cost of running an EV and charging it at home on a dedicated tariff is still only around half the cost of running your previous petrol or diesel car. We briefed you on EV range in our driving section. When this Tonale PHEV's battery is full, the car's supposed to deliver up to 37 miles of combined cycle full battery running, which, to give you some class perspective, is better than an Audi Q3 45 TFSI-E. It's about the same as you'll get from a Mercedes GLA 250e, but it's some way short of the 55-mile figure that's boasted by BMW's X1 plug-in hybrids. That X1 stat explains why that BMW is way ahead in terms of fuel and CO2 readings, but the Tonale's readings otherwise compare really quite well against class rivals. They're officially rated at up to 217.3 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and up to 29 grams per kilometre of CO2. Alfa says that the electric range figure would rise to over 49 miles in town, and that in combination with its 1.3 litre petrol unit, the Tonale could offer up to 372 miles of total range. With a plug-in hybrid Tonale, the advanced efficiency DNA drive mode sets the car in full electric drive and activates an e-coasting setting that disconnects the engine when cruising. As usual with PHEVs, there's also an e-save setting that allows you to save battery charge for when you might need it later in the trip. There's also a downhill coast function that holds 31 miles an hour on downhill slopes, charging the battery in the process, and that works really well. For particularly frugal use, you'll want to regularly consult the vehicle part of the central screen and its helpful e-hybrid section. Here you can set personalised charging schedules, up to 3 of those, and view a driving history section with graphs that show distance travelled, regeneration history, and the miles that you've driven using battery and engine. The e-hybrid section also has a power flow screen that shows an energy monitor, so you can see at any time what's being driven by what. That's alongside a hybrid mode that shows kilowatt consumption of engine, battery, and the climate system. Further EV displays can be selected for the centre of the instrument screen. One shows litres per kilometre consumption, plus a charge and power meter and a brake and acceleration meter. With all these tools, there's really very few excuses for substandard ownership efficiency returns. What else? Well, insurance is 37E or 38E for this plug-in model. With all models, garage visits are required every year or every 9,000 miles, whichever comes around first. A service due screen in the My Car part of the central screen's vehicle section tells you when your next garage visit's due. Depreciation values will be aided by this car's supposedly world-first NFT or non-fungible token technology, which backs up the car's service history, so stuff like maintenance records and battery pack condition, in a cloud out of the vehicle. And this means that no one should touch your car without it showing on the NFT record. Alfa claims that this makes it much harder to forge the vehicle's records, which in turn ought to preserve residuals. As you'd expect from a piece of Stellantis Group engineering, the plug-in hybrid powertrain on offer here is highly sophisticated, and there are lots of provided efficiency tools to allow you to make the very most of it. But that apart, our feelings about this car are very much as they were with the more affordable mild hybrid version. Like too many of the Milanese makers' models before it, this Tonale falls frustratingly short of perfection. It's a little more difficult to warm to than its larger Giulia and Stelvio showroom stablemates. Now that's partly because the DNA of this car is a little less alpha, and it's partly because there are a few issues that the brand really needs to sort, things that you wouldn't find in less charismatic Teutonic rivals. It needs more assertive powertrain response and probably less hyperactive steering. Plus, if it wants to be properly premium, a little more care needs to be taken in the choice of some elements of interior trim. Having said all of that, there's so much here that you might really like. The looks and the cabin are, as advertised, pure Alfa Romeo. The PHEV engineering isn't, but a lot of work's been put into it to give it an Alfa feel. Enough work to justify a test drive if you have a sneaking admiration for the Milanese marque? Absolutely.